Oh, this is David Chapin, and this video is being sent out to you to let you know what our company's policy is and updated guidelines with regard to COVID-19. It's called the COVID-19 Exposure and Return to Work Guidelines. It summarizes 4 different steps. First step is determine if the employee had an exposure. Second step is quarantine requirements after an exposure. The third is what to do if an employee has symptoms or tests positive for COVID-19. And the final step is return to work guidelines. So those are the 4 steps to this policy, and I will try to briefly outline them. I'll let you know right up front, the procedure as World Electric goes through this is we're sending out this video to let you know to look for and anticipate a document for you to sign off for and acknowledge as you've received those. Should you get that document and have questions on them, please direct those questions to our Human Resource Department. Locate Trista Sealander, and she will answer any questions that you might have. Each situation is unique. You might have some examples in which you have specific questions. We ask that you would talk to Trista Sealander about those. Don't ask your foreman, because he doesn't know. And don't ask general superintendents, because again, they aren't as well versed on this as Trista. Trista understands the policy, was part of writing the policy, can answer any questions you might have. And in some cases, we've had to put these guidelines and procedures to work, and work pretty seamlessly so far. So without any further ado, let me briefly update those things to you. And again, this is a summary. The official 2-page document will be coming out to you shortly. When you get that, you should review it. Ask any questions that you might have, all of our Human Resource Department, and then sign off that you've received it. We will log that. So we're going to determine, first step is determine if employees had an exposure. And exposure means, and this I think is really one of the most important parts of it, an employee has had an exposure to a symptomatic individual, including 48 hours before the individual became symptomatic. And the 4 criteria again used there is if the employee was in household contact with that person. So if it's someone that you live with, or had a close contact for a prolonged period of time, within 6 feet. A prolonged period of time means 10 minutes. So if you've been around someone for more than 10 minutes and inside of 6 feet, and they were diagnosed, then you've had exposure. Or if you've had a COVID-19 test for any reason, and you had a cough or sneezed on by a certain individual. So to recap those, your household contact, your close contact, which is within 6 feet for 10 minutes or more, had a test for COVID-19, or you were coughed on or sneezed on by that individual, then you would need to have exposure. Caveats to that are a systematic individual means an individual becomes systematic within confirmed or suspected COVID-19, and the exposure is you're having direct contact, not secondhand contact. The exposure is not having contact with someone who's had contact. So in this example, if your wife has been in contact, that means your wife's been in contact, not you, even if you've been in contact with your wife. So that is how we go about determining if an employee had an exposure. These are the typically regarded guidelines that you see all over the place from CDC. Again, if you have questions, please talk to the Human Resource Department. They'll gladly answer your questions. The second part of this is quarantine requirements after exposure. If you're able to work from home, which most of our people are not able to work from home, can't install conduit from the living room, then you would be self-quarantined for at least 14 days. If the symptoms do not develop, an employee may return to work. Your first day of quarantine begins from your last contact with the infected person. So if you saw someone on a Thursday, but then didn't develop or find out about it until a Monday, you're already 4 days into your quarantine. So quarantine of 14 days starts from your last day of contact with the infected person. Symptom number 2, situation number 2 is if you're not able to work from home. Then you're self-quarantine, and expose employees with quarantine at home for at least 7 days. If the symptoms do not develop, the employee may return. The first day of quarantine, again, begins from the last day of contact with an infected person. Second bullet point there, again, if you're not working home, regular monitoring. All employees need to self-monitor for symptoms and communicate daily with the supervisor. If symptoms develop, you need to report it to your supervisor that you're unable to work, then you need to do that. Pre-screening. Daily employees will complete a health questionnaire prior to their shift 14 days afterwards. So again, if you have been exposed, you will then expect for 14 days to complete a health questionnaire prior to your shift. If you've been exposed, we will expect you to wear a mask. The exposed employee needs to wear the mask on your face at all times while in the workplace 14 days after your last exposure. So again, the self-quarantine lasts for 7, the wearing the face mask lasts for 14, back to the day that you were exposed. And social distancing, all employees will need to maintain at least a 6-foot separation from others and practice social distancing as work duties permit inside the workplace. So that's what we do for quarantine requirements after an exposure. Point number 3, what to do if an employee has symptoms or tests positive for COVID-19. Simply the first step is you must stay at home. You need to notify your department manager, your project manager, or the human resource director and let them know that you have the symptoms or you've tested positive for it. You need to follow the current CDC guidelines posted. I can read off the web address for you, but you can go to the CDC website and find those. When the document comes out, the detailed address will be there. And then you need to follow the return to work guidelines at point 4, which I'm going to give you point 4 here. So what are the return to work guidelines? Again, if you have coronavirus or COVID-19 symptoms, a written note from a doctor that the individual may return to work. You can come back to work if you have a written note from the doctor, or if you're not going to be tested again to determine if you're contagious. The employee if you've not had a fever for 72 hours, so that's 3 full days, and those are not just work days, but just any 72-hour span. So that's no fever and without the use of fever-reducing medicine, and other symptoms have improved, and at least 7 days have passed since the symptoms first appeared. Okay. That's the second condition. The third one is if an employee will be tested, the employee no longer has a fever without the use of fever-reducing medicine. Other symptoms such as coughing, shortness of breath have improved, and the employee has received 2 negative tests in a row, 24 hours apart. The doctor will follow CDC guidelines. And again, that address is listed on the form that we're going to send out to you, and you go to the CDC page. Put those up in advance. So you can return to work if you meet any one of those 3 criteria: the doctor's note, the 72 hours, or you've been tested twice and positive for it. So obviously the doctor's note that you just want to get there. You don't need to qualify for all of those 3 things. Just need to qualify for one of them. So if you should have tested positive, but you had no symptoms, you can return to work with a written note from your doctor that says that, or at least 10 days have passed since the date of the first positive COVID-19 diagnostic test and have no subsequent illnesses. So let's say you're asymptomatic and you find out you passed the test, you've never had the symptoms, and then you've got to stay for 10 days until you can return to work from the first positive test. So that is all of them. I outlined them. It's a rather long video. Like I said, you are going to get this all in written form. And what we need you to do is to sign off that you've received it, and then I will let you go put it into practice. Starts effective immediately. So these policies are effective. I'm recording this on Monday, May 18th, and I realize you took us a while to get it out to you. This is the guidelines that we're operating under. And again, if you have any questions, please ask the Human Resource Department. They can make sense of it. We ask that you not ask the foreman because they're not going to know the answer. We ask that you not ask your general superintendents because, again, they don't have the answers. They haven't been working on the issue like the Human Resource Department has. We've had employees go through these guidelines and they've worked very well, and we've been very efficient throughout the whole process. Again, you can also talk to me. If you don't know how to get a hold of the Human Resource Department, talk to me. You can call me up and I'll get you in touch with the Human Resource Department and gladly help you get to the bottom of that. Yeah, check for a text message and you'll get this. I've got a link to the documents and or emails. We'll give you a link to the documents for you to sign. We're going to follow up and make sure that everyone is understanding what these policies are. It's very important that we provide a safe and healthy workplace. We're working hard to make sure that we do that. Hopefully you and your family have been able to remain as healthy as possible in these difficult times. So thank you. I hope you're having a great day.